sit down. I got the mic. And then I'm going to give it to you. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming and supporting our second event in our Swedish Equine educational series. We are so happy to be able to share the talents and knowledge of the people that are actually members of our local community and the chance to support each other. Tonight, we are super excited to have Farrier legend and Hall of Famer Sonny Pistilli here. Sonny spent over 60 years of shoeing. He also teaches the art of shoeing and will be starting classes in blacksmithing soon, right? Oh, you're starting it right now? Yes. So if anyone want to learn about that, just let me know and I can point you the way. I met Sonny through his son, Danny Pistilli, who currently shoes my horse T. And T is a horse with a lot of feet issues and needs a lot of corrective shoeing to stay healthy. So, thank God there's people like you and you taught your son everything. So yeah, very, very good, very good, very fortunate to have them. So, and after the talk, it's going to be a Q&A. We're just going to maybe have a little problem hearing in the back when you ask the question. So either you have to be really loud or you have to just repeat the question. Yeah. And also, I want to mention that our next talk, that will be July 9th, is with Sabine Spring. And she will be talking about standardbreds, from racing to retraining, and also how she works with rescuing these incredible horses. I also want to finally thank you to Fiona and my husband, Chris, who made all this super tasty food. Okay, so here he is, the man. Let's see it. There you go.
Thank you, Karina, for inviting me. I've been in the business, like she said, 60 years. And I started teaching in 83. But I've had very, very good farriers over the years who have been my mentors. Seamus Brady, I was with him for 4 years. And Bruce Daniels, I was helped him many, many years in his school. And as he was getting away from teaching, I kept asking him, can you give me more knowledge? So it's awful hard to get help. And I want to know if I can get help, I could teach them and they can go into the business and know it as it should be done. And that's what I did. I went with him for a lot of years. I learned to do a lot of blacksmithing. I also learned my main thing was trimming feet, and I learned to do that from Seamus Brady. And when people say balance, what is balance? Balance is having a horse move perfectly flat, and the change of the foot should never change one side or the other if he isn't balanced. If he's balanced, that never changes. But if you're unbalanced, things start to change. And what makes change is horses adapt to almost anything. They adapt to bad shoeing. They adapt to whatever happens. But eventually, it catches up to them. And then that's when you people start calling vets, start calling this guy, that guy. Then you wind up with lots of problems. And the thing that I emphasize with my students is that if you learn to put the shoe where it's supposed to be on the foot, the balance is there. But if you don't, the only thing we're supposed to do, I read a lot of old books, 1800 books, as far back as you can go. Those people had a way of getting to wherever they had to go to get stuff so they could eat. Their horses had to go. They couldn't wait for the farrier to come. They took care of most of the stuff themselves. And a lot of farriers back in those days, they were vets also. They weren't just farriers. They were vets. They were even doctors. They had to be good at what they did. I read those books. Those books gave me more knowledge. The new books are beautiful books, but the old books tell you how to do it. Many years ago, I was just starting in the business, and of course, nobody knows you, so you run around and you get all the horses nobody else wants to do. So just one lady called me up and said, I have a horse. I just got, my daughter's going to go to the Olympics, and her horse hasn't any shoes. I says, well, why don't you get your farrier to put them on? She doesn't adjust to shoes. I said, my God, that's impossible. She doesn't adjust to shoes. She only has front ones. She can't put back ones. She interferes. So I went and got one of my old books, read it. It told me what to do. I went and did it. And then that's how I started in the business. I got this horse going. She went to the Olympics in California. I think it was in 1980 when it was in California. And she competed. And the shoes that I put on, the guy that I was teaching, I learned from, Seamus Brady, was the farrier for the equestrian team of the United States. And he sees the job and he says, boy, what a nice job was done here. And the groom said, Sonny Pistilli did it. He says, oh, one of my people. So, of course, that all helps you get better at what you're doing when the word gets out that you do it. So this is how it starts, is by just doing it properly. And I'm here to tell you that I'm here to answer any question any one of you people want to ask me, and I'd be only glad to help you. But a lot of times we get involved that this guy did it wrong, that guy did it wrong. Well, back in 1982 or 83 it was, they took 100 horses from the West. And when they got those 100 horses, for one whole year, they checked their feet. You didn't find any navicular. You didn't find any ring bone. You didn't find any side bone. And they found that the foot being, as it was, not a beautiful round thing, but a little pretty much square thing, a little blunt in the front, a little straighter in the quarters on the front, back feet, a little blunt in the toe, just a little bit like an angle on the side. And that was their feet, because they had to be quick to get away from anybody chasing them. So their feet and legs never changed. They never had problems. What happens with us, me, anybody learning to do this job, you start shoeing horses and you start getting busy and you can't take care of what needs to be done, things start to change. The jobs start changing, feet start changing. When they start changing, that's when the problems come. So I just know that when I teach where to put the shoe. And there is one only place. When you read an old book, it'll tell you a shoe should be able to protect the wall for wear. That's all. Nothing corrective. That's all it's supposed to do. You can't put more length to it and give more support. Like years ago, we used to think, oh yeah, give a little more length. Then they wonder why they got a quarter crack. There's so much space, the center of the foot, the center of articulation, from that point to this point to that point never changes. That never changes on the front foot or the back foot. So when they did that study on those horses, they were perfect. Their feet were perfect for what they needed to do. So what I did when I started teaching, I went according to the old way of doing it. And I did what they saw in those feet and what I saw on those feet, because I went to Kentucky Dr. Redden put on many, many, many classes of those 100 horses so we could see the change in the years that we'd be watching them and what was happening to their feet. We would see it, and they would say, geez, this is what should be done. And but a lot of guys saw it, but they never really took it like this is the way we should do. They didn't. And a lot of times we want to make it look beautiful, nice big round foot. Then they wonder a horse trip because his toes are not getting out of the way. You make too much on the bottom, creates too much else, tripping, interference. So they should be done balanced and right. And if there's any questions you got to ask me, and I'll be only too glad to help you with it.
So when you're trimming the horse's hoof and you're looking for balance, what are you balancing? Like, how are you deciding its balance?
Okay. When you pick up a front foot and you put it between your legs and you hold it, if you go from the point of the frog about 3/4 of an inch, you want to make sure from the point of the frog 3/4 of an inch back, that's the center of a horse's foot. The center and the back should be from this point. You get a divider and go to the front point. That's exactly what should be the end of the shoe. The front of the shoe should be at the end of that point. So what you're going by is the back of the foot, not the front of the foot. Measure from the center back. And you just hang that shoe over your horse's foot, 1/8 of an inch. Then you'd go to the front of the foot. That's where your front of your shoe should be on the horse's foot. Now, if there's a little more length to the toe, set the shoe back to where you made that mark. And that will make your balance point. And always mark from the point of your heel back to each heel. And go, make sure you get the mark on the back of the heel. You mark it almost not quite to the hairline, but about a little bit above the hairline on both sides. Nip the toe. Come back to a quarter. Come back to the other quarter. Then rasp it and meet it on both sides. That's when your foot will be balanced. Don't just pick it up and look at it, because a lot of times horses, if they're unbalanced, they'll push up on one side of their foot. And as they push up, when you trim it, it'll look perfectly flat. You put that foot down, go to the other foot, come back to that foot. You'll see that foot will start to settle. It'll start to go up, get longer again because it's jammed. It wasn't balanced to begin with.
So when you're trimming, you're trying to get the balance from side to side as opposed to front to back.
Yes.
So you want the heels to be balanced.
Well, there's a hairline in front of a horse's foot, and there's a hairline on the back of his foot. You get a divider, and you mark from the hairline down to where you want the heel to end. So if it ends this far down on this side of the foot, don't pay attention to any other thing than the buttress. The buttress has the line. So if the buttress is shoved up, measure those still. You take your short side, go to that side, take it off, even if it looks like it's going to be a whole lot more off on that side than the other side. Because what happens, it comes down. You go to the other foot, come back, you'll see it'll be even. Yep. Anybody else?
My horse is barefoot and has an injury.
Yes.
So when you look at his back foot, it always looks like he has suckless thrush, but he doesn't. He has a line that goes through there. It must have been wire that got stuck in there, and the spar goes up over the bulb.
Yeah.
So his one bulb actually sticks out further than the other bulb. So like when you're measuring that buttress line on a barefoot horse,
right,
make sure it's level and balanced. Like how do you know it's balanced
Well, then you go to the side. Go to the side of the foot.
Uh-huh.
Your buttress is the back. Just go to the side. Just go a little bit up. Measure that side of the heel and go to the other hairline on the other side and measure that one. I've one many years ago. I had a horse that stuck an arrow went up through the frog and came out right at the top of the coronary band. The vet came, pulled the arrow out, and the thing that when you pull the bow back, the arrow back, got stuck in the horse's foot when he pulled the arrow through the foot. The horse got infected. It got a big boil in the front, and when it blew out that thing that holds the bowstring. It came and it got better, but a big crack grew down through the middle of this horse's foot, and it looked like a splayed foot. When it was growing in two pieces. I came along and I put a sandal on her. I fitted a shoe to where it should be. And as I put the sandal, I put a screw at the very end of the thing. So when I tightened it up, it would pull it in a little bit. But I was very careful not to pull it in too fast, too quickly, because as I pulled it in, it would start to hurt her. So we just made it comfortable enough where she could take it. And then about 3 weeks, I'd go back and tighten up that screw a little bit more. If that lady wound up making a 3-day horse out of that horse, and it never ever took a bad step after we got them all healed up. I just kept tightening that screw, and finally the hoof got together, and then it grew down right straight across. It just had a wide part of the foot where the scar from the hairline had a scar. But that horse wound up being a good 3-day horse too. Yes.
Could you explain why a quarter crack just never grows out?
What's that?
Why a quarter crack just never grows out?
They absolutely do grow out.
I have a horse that has had one for probably almost 2 years now. He used to have them all the time, and they always grow out and be okay. Since he had kidney failure,
The toe was too long. The heels are too far forward. Your horses has too long a toe, and the foot is way out of proportion, and that's why it's like a wire. You keep bending a wire, eventually the wire breaks. Well, when the horse gets a quarter crack, the toe is, remember when I said center of articulation? That line in front is bigger than the line in back. And that's what causes that to happen. And vice versa. If you make the line too far back and too short in the front, same thing starts to happen. Get an old book, and there is diagrams. I mean, where you can find the center of articulation on the front and back foot. And that's all you have to do is get a divider, get 2 of them, and do measuring. And when you measure, you'll learn to balance a foot properly by just paying attention to the hairline, because the hairline never changes on a horse's foot other than if it gets injured. It's a ring that's there. And when you start cleaning up the foot, you take so much sole out. Some guys get a sharp knife and they cut away, and they wonder why the horse walks around like he's walking on eggs. I mean, it's too much sole. The sole is protection. The frog takes 40% of body weight. Then the sole doesn't take much of anything other than the horn takes 60%. So 60 and 40 is 100%. That means they don't want too much pressure on the sole. Even when you put the shoe on the foot, you want to offset the web of the shoe so it's not against the sole. A lot of guys put a shoe on and they wonder why the horse goes off a little crimpy. That's one of the reasons. That's what causes it. Pressure on the sole.
What about a horse, a barefoot horse?
Yeah.
When you train a barefoot horse, actually the sole, the wall is the same height, on the same plane as the sole.
I watch a lot of westerns, and my Ellie doesn't like. She goes to watch the news, but I saw a horse and laying down on its side. Those horses that go in those movies, not many of them wear shoes. But somebody who does the trimming, they trim, but they leave a little bit more horn on a horse than we do out here. Out here, they take it down. You should, when you trim, there's the going around the natural balance trim, all this baloney, barefoot trim. Listen, shoes were to make the horse go further. That's all shoes were supposed to do. But what guys get cutting away and take too much sole, you got a problem. That's protection. Leave it there.
Do you trim away any sole?
Just clean it up. Just clean it up. You don't need to take any sole. No, you don't. If you measure from the point of the frog, the very point to where the heel, where the buttress and the heel of that foot is, just take that same mark and put it on the coronary band and make a mark on the foot. The foot should be no longer than that.
But now, like when your frog starts to shed, do you clean that up or do you just let it shed?
No. I clean my frog of all the dead stuff that's hanging on it, but I keep the frog as big as possible. The bigger the frog, the better the foot.
I have a question about that, actually. So my horse is retired now. I don't ride her anymore. She has shoes in the front, no shoes in the back.
That's okay.
Oh, good, because that was one of my things too. I've had people criticize me.
No.
Say, oh, you want to
Well, believe it or not, the cavalry, they used to put shoes on the back and not the front.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they didn't want to. They never went without shoes. They always had shoes, and that's why the Indians got beat up. Their horses didn't have any shoes, so they couldn't travel that far.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask about the frog because her frogs are shrivelly.
Yeah, but I mean, you got front shoes on.
Yeah.
Now, is the frog touching the ground at all?
I don't think so. I think it's too small, like too shriveled.
Well, you got to get the frog to touch the ground. The frog needs 40%.
Is it worthwhile to still try to pursue that?
Yes, even at her age, yeah, you should try to pursue that.
Okay.
She'll wind up with a better foot.
What makes it so that it's so like? What can I?
The frog's too far from the ground, so you're not getting any good pressure to the sole. But when the frog gets pushed up, that keeps the sole from being flat.
So is that because they're taking too much toe off or too much sole out?
No, they're taking too much wool. They're not. If they're putting the shoe on, they're leaving too much of everything on.
Oh, okay.
So you're further away from the ground. Something you got. The frog has to touch 40% of the ground.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So the cavalry put shoes on the back and not the front?
Yeah.
What was the reason for that?
Well, because they felt that was the motor. So when they trimmed the back feet, they kept the back feet a little bit on the long side.
Rear end drop. Okay.
Yeah. And they did shoe them in front too. If they were on a long go, they all got 4 shoes. I mean, but normal wear around the cavalry and little here, there, and it was front or back. They never wanted to make it so they would have one shoe on. They never wanted it to be like that. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Why do you think so many farriers now leave their toes so long?
That's a good question. I've been Eddie's one of my students. Eddie's been working with me almost 2 months. He's incredible. You teach him something, he knows, he can see it. He's been around horses a long, long time. His wife has been into horses for a long, long time. Before I ever shod horses, I raised quarter horses for many years. And my problem was to get the farrier. I could never get them all the time to have them. So when I'd go to the shows, I'd go without a shoe. You wind up getting kicked out of a class because your horse wasn't fully shod. So then I went to my farrier one day and I said, please teach me how to put a shoe on. And he did. So then I went to another guy and I said, I wish I could work for you a little bit. I'd like to be able to shoe my own horses. I'm getting married. And he says to me, well, just call a farrier. I said, no. I've been at horse shows in the state of New Jersey. My horse was winning the state of New Jersey. That's all he had to do. The last show of the year was place. He could have been 5th and get 1 point. That's all he needed. I got kicked out of the class because my horse only had 3 shoes on. So he told me, you can't show your horse. Your horse is not fully entire. So, of course, I left. So I learned how to put a shoe on. And then once I learned to put a shoe on, guys would go to the show and they would say to me, somebody told me you know how to put a shoe on. I says, yeah. I got a shoe. Can you put it on for me? Sure. I put it on. They look at that foot. Can you do the other one too? I'm working. That's how it started. That's exactly how it started. I'd go and start shoeing horses. And then back in those days, they got $12 to shoe a horse. The guy says, how much you owe you? $20. $20. My guy, hey, this is Sunday. I'm at the horse show. You asked me to do this. If you don't want me to do it, take him out of here. I don't want to get all sweaty. Give me $20. That's how it started. That's how I got started. Yeah.
My horse is pigeon-toed. Now balancing a hook, does that same theory work on that?
Absolutely. He's pigeon-toed because there's more wool on the inside than the outside.
Well, I know I've read somewhere that when they're foals, you can actually correct their.
No. When they're foals, it's very you have to be very, very careful because the chest of a horse changes the bottom of their feet. If you try to train, they are like this because they eat. A lot of horses, if their necks are short, they'll start wearing the inside here. So all you have to do is take the outside off. Don't go fooling around and thinking you're going to make them straight. It doesn't work that way on foals. Foals, you just want to be able to keep it flat, take the toe off, give them a little heel pressure, frog pressure. They grow. As you'll see, as they grow, everything starts to get better.
So as an adult, she's 7 right now.
Yeah, you could take, if somebody's trimming them, make sure they trim the inside and try to make her want to be a little bit more off the inside. Get a divider.
Right.
Measure your outside, right at the outside at the heel. Measure there, go to the other side, then go directly to the center of the foot, measure that side and measure the other side. You'll find the inside's going to be a lot longer than the outside.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
I have horses with laminitis.
Laminitis?
Yes.
Yes.
Train them. I mean, I'm noticing all sorts of changes in my horse's feet right now. How long does it take to fully regrow the hoof? There's so many changes going on.
Well, it takes from hairline to hairline is almost a year. Okay. When a horse gets laminitis, usually the front of the hoof, the whole front is usually grows different than they usually grow a lot of heel and they don't grow much toe. And the foot starts doing this only because of all the damage that's created in front of the foot from laminitis. And that's what takes the coffin bone, instead of being where it should be, it starts to go back. So what you do is you take the heel down and try to get the coffin bone parallel to the ground by taking the heel down. When that starts to happen, sometimes the foot, and you have to take that whole front of the foot off. So everything starts changing as it grows. But you need somebody that knows what they're doing to really get to make it so it gets better. But it can get better.
It's not a death sentence.
Well, I'm going to tell you. A year and a half ago, a woman called me and told me her horses have had laminitis for 3 years. She could not ride it anymore. And she called me to go up and look at her. I did. Ellie and I went up and we looked at her and we saw what we could do. And I told her that I could fix it. And I told her that it needs a heart bar shoe. And I put a shoe on backwards. So the back of the foot took the heels down. And when I did that, I noticed that when I touched the foot with I have a hoof testers, 2 pounds of pressure, she would want to fall down. It hurt so much because of the rotation. So what I did was I put the shoe, and then I welded a plate on front of the shoe, but I didn't weld it so it would be on the foot. It was more on the ground surface of the foot. So when she walked, you could actually see underneath the shoe, but there was nothing pushing on the sole. So what I did then is I put this Equipack. It's the softest one you can get. I think it's in a pink color. I put that underneath that pad of steel and underneath the heart bar. She rode that horse 5 days later, told me how much it was so wonderful. A month ago, I was there shoeing her horse, and I see a bag of food sitting. She just had bought in 3 bags of food, and one was opened. And I just finished resetting this horse, and her feet were getting so good. I says, next time we do her, we can do away with the corrective stuff. She's going to be a normal footed horse. Oh, she said that'd be wonderful. So, okay. And then I said to her, I says, Susan, what are you feeding your horse? Are you feeding this horse, your horse these pellets? Oh, she says, always did. I says, do you feed her? How many times you feed her a day? She says, I feed her morning and night. I says, what do you do during the day? Well, she stays in the field over there, and there's a little grass that she can nibble on. But I said, when you feed a horse morning and night, horses are browsers. They're like deer. They got to eat all the time. They eat almost 90% of the day. Horses are the same way. They eat, walk around, drink, eat, go under a tree, swish their tails for a couple hours, then start eating again. They never have problems. They grow up and live a life. We come along and we feed them morning and we feed them at night. Sometimes we might throw them a couple flakes of hay in the afternoon. That horse is worrying about dinner all day. And that's what causes laminitis. When you get a horse worrying about where the next meal is coming, a lot of times they'll fret themselves into a laminitic position. Keep your horse busy chewing hay, something. It's always better. Don't just think twice a day I can feed him. Boy, oh boy, that save a lot on food. No, it doesn't work. I showed horses for a lot of years, and I had a lot of great horses. My horses had grain in front of them 24 hours. 24 hours, there was grain. And they never got sick, and I never had a horse get colic. One time, 8 leaves with frost on them. I don't know what kind of leaf it was, but I cut the tree down. Yeah, I wasn't going to have anything happen.
What about easy keepers?
What about?
Easy keepers. I have 2 spotted drafts.
Yeah.
And if I let them eat all day long.
And they never get sick, do they?
They would be like ticks ready to burst. I mean, they get way fat, like too fat, unhealthy fat. But, I mean,
You just have them in the pasture?
so this is, so in the pasture now, they have grazing muzzles and they're keeping their weight at a good place.
More than it should be.
No, that would be in the winter. If I put hay in front of them 24/7, they would be so fat. So fat.
You know what though? They won't be. If you do that all the time, they won't. They'll eat what they want to eat, and then they'll nibble, and then they'll walk around and do something else, and then they'll come back and eat again. But they'll go to the bathroom just as much as they eat.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. So that.
It's like elephant poops. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean.
I think they have their elephant friends though.
That's also the issue with my games. He's a very, very easy keeper. So he gets the tiniest.
Yeah, but if he's an easy keeper, then it'd be awful easy to keep him busy chewing.
Yeah, but he got entirely too fat. Entirely.
Oh, you feeding him? Are you feeding?
Right now, he's kept in his barnyard during the day, and he's allowed out at night. But oh my God, I mean, if he's out an hour longer than he looks like a pregnant mare. Literally.
Is he insulin resistant?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things. Now
How old is he? How old is he? How old is he?
23.
23? Well, he's getting up in age, but that's still this horse that this lady that had a lame one there. The horse was 27 when I started, and she died 2 days ago because she had a twisted intestine because of the pellets. The pellets have killed more horses.
What you're saying is the pellets are no good.
That is a processed food. That is stuff that they can't throw it away. They make pellets out of it.
So, and this goes back to one of the things that I did away with a long time ago was the sweet beans, because I was concerned about sugar levels, the carbohydrate levels in them. So that's why I went to a light pelletized feed.
Yeah.
Thinking that was better for him, lowering the sugar, and still getting the nutrients that he needs.
Well, the sugar that's in horse food is molasses.
Yes.
And molasses is not as bad as you think it is. Molasses is not as bad as you think it is. But I used to get my own mixed, and I used to get crimped oats.
Yes.
And bran. And I kept my horses eat that all the time. And they had a little bit of molasses in it. And you'll be surprised when they know that it's there, they don't worry about chewing all day long on it. They'll eat on something else. And then they come back and nibble at that again. You know what I mean? It's just keep them busy, that's all.
Now, and that's my other question with nutrients was bran. Because bran was something that I fed my horse on a regular basis.
And they didn't no good.
And they were like, no bran.
Who said this?
That.
Oh yeah.
And to me, bran was like the go-to for.
Trust me, the bran did not hurt your horse. The bran was very good for your horse.
Because they basically said to eliminate the bran, because he used to get like literally a quarter cup of grain and a little bit of beet pulp and some
that's a good thing too. Beet pulp is good to feed them.
Yeah.
It's a filler. It doesn't cause any.
No.
What's that?
They said no.
See.
Okay.
You know what? A lot of pellets keep the vets busy. There's more horses colicking today than ever before. Ever.
what are your thoughts on Farrier's formula and joint and stuff like that, like supplements?
Oh, good question.
Hero, Hero, Hero. She can tell you that makes good feet, great hair, and they're
Is
healthy.
it edible supplement?
Yep.
It doesn't work on insulin.
Great stuff. Hero. I don't get nothing for it, but I recommend it to all my customers. When I had a lot of people, I don't have that many more. I don't.
And what about like a topical, like Equine one, the one that starts with a K? Do you recommend putting that on?
If you fed Hero
Yeah.
and got yourself Omeline 90 or 100, you don't have to worry about nothing. And hay, just a nice quality hay. That's all.
So I have a rather bizarre question.
Go
My
ahead.
horse years ago, having for I don't know how many years now. When I first got him, he was 9. Quarter horse, barefoot. He, as a barefoot horse, had contracted heels. How does that happen? I have never in my life seen a barefoot horse with contracted.
From the time he was a little guy, or from the time
when
he
I got him, he was 9.
9?
That's why when I got him, I looked at his heels.
Well, somebody was leaving a lot of heel on him and taking toe.
Even just barefoot, you could do that.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so easy. That's so.
That's just really, really bad.
That you. Yeah, you can make a mess of a foot.
Okay. All right, because that always baffled me as how a barefoot horse can have contracted heels.
Yeah. Barefoot horse will have contracted heels as long as they keep taking the toe away. They let the heels grow. They're no good.
No, I thought you had to work at that.
Anybody else?
So how much do you have to worry about spring grass?
Spring grass. Yeah, it depends though how he's been fed all winter. You know what I mean? And this spring was really could be I didn't hear much of it, but usually in the spring you find a lot of laminatic problems. The cold nights get on the grass. Horse start eating early in the morning on grass. I always fed my horses before I turned them out 2 flakes of hay. Before I fed them, they had the grain all the time, but they got 2 flakes of hay in the morning. And when they got the hay, they'd go out, they'd eat the green grass, but they'd already be pretty much full from the hay before they really got their heads down in it.
Unless they stand there and yell.
Yeah. And today, the way hay is so expensive, you don't want to waste it. But it's expensive. I see now that it's almost $10 a bale. That's a lot of money.
So advantages and disadvantages of being barefoot. I mean,
If you're not doing anything with your horse, being barefoot is the best thing for that horse. Yeah.
So, last time my Farrier was out, he didn't realize my horse was retired. So when he found out that she was retired, he said, "Oh, I'll just pull all her shoes. She doesn't need shoes anymore." But I'm afraid to do that because I'm afraid she's going to be super.
Sure. If she's used to what kind of horse? Thoroughbred? You got to be very careful with a thoroughbred because their feet are shelly. Yeah, But you feed her hero, her feet will change. And I'm going to tell you guys, make sure that you have somebody working on your horse's feet, that he is a certified farrier. And let him show you proof of it. Because certification will tell you he's been taught the right way to do it. Because when they trim the feet, they're trimming for balance. Those guys are very, very good judge of work. Very, very good. I mean, I also teach, but I also give the tests for Journeyman 1, Journeyman 2, for the BWFA. And it's important that even my own students, when I see somebody that is having a little hard time, I tell them, you worked with a guy for a year, 2 years, come and see me, I'll test you. And I already have had him for 6 months. And I said to him, you're not ready to be on your own. Go work with a guy for a year, come back and talk to me. And that's when I see the difference. Get under a lot of horses. When they work with me, we don't get under a lot of horses because I don't do that many anymore. I work with dead feet. I get the feet from Dawn. She brings me feet, and we got feet to work on. So you learn how to fit shoes. But I teach them how to fit them the way I want them fit. That's, to me, that if you put the shoe where it belongs, you won't have a problem.
Sometimes I've noticed, like, her sometimes start to look a little bruised. What makes that? Like, what? Because I don't know enough about feet to be able to suggest it in the narrative, but I'm like, you're the one who's supposed to know.
It should be straight. A straight line is stronger than a bent line. When you bend something, it bends more. If you keep it straight like it's supposed to be, they stay straight.
So what is it that
you got to take more. You got to take foot from the top down and make it perfectly straight. Put your rasp on it. See that it's perfectly straight to the hairline. Okay? A straight line is better than a bent line.
it doesn't look nice.
No, it's a bell shape. No good. No. Well, Katrina,
Were you ever at Spring Tree Farm?
what's that?
Were you ever at Spring Tree Farm
Spring tree?
in Bedminster?
Yes.
All right, because I kept thinking to myself, I know you from somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. I've shot horses there.
Yeah, back way.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yes, back in the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, because I'm listening.
At one point, I used to shoot every 6 weeks, 500 horses. So, I mean, I had a lot of horses under my belt. I mean, it was murder. I've been over a lot of times. Yeah.
I'm going to ask this for my husband, because my husband is interested in this. He's not a horsey person, but he's interested in like the blacksmithing stuff.
Yes.
So when you teach the blacksmithing, what do you teach them?
Well, the first thing I teach them is to weld in the fire, not with a welding. You learn how to weld in the fire. You take 2 pieces of metal, you get them simultaneously hot, and then you put them on, and you got to weld them. And believe it or not, you have to know how to do that. And then once you learn to do that, it opens doors for a lot of things. Like I teach them how to make roses. I teach them how to make candle holders, mug out of jars, make a mug handle out of steel. Once you learn the basics, it opens up doors for lots of things. And you buy a good old blacksmith book, and there's different things that you can do. So when you bend, like say you're making hinges and you want the same hinge all the time, you have to make a template that makes your bends for you. So every time you bend that piece of metal, It's exactly like the first one you did. So there's a lot of tricks to learning blacksmithing, but there are a lot of good books too. Get the old ones.
Nutrient imbalances and quarter cracks. Is that, I mean,
If your horse's foot is perfectly balanced, that crack will go away.
okay, but
It will never go away if the toe is longer than that.
no woman who started feeding her horse black sunflower seeds.
What's that?
Black sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
And he ended up with a quarter crack. It wouldn't go away. So, are odd feeds and nutrient situations, can they cause quarter cracks?
What causes quarter cracks is the stress to the wall. Stress is if the toe is longer than the center of articulation. If, like I told you, you get the center of articulation, you measure from the heel forward, then you go to the toe. If that line is greater, you'll get a quarter crack.
I tend to differ a little bit with that. I see a lot of quarter cracks on the hog tracks and the races, and we can have the same blacksmith, the same length of the shoe.
They leave a long toe on all their horses, and that's why they break down in the back of their feet. They break down and they never grow a heel. Why? Because it's crushed.
I don't think we have on no. We don't bother.
Trust me. I have a friend of mine who's a very good farrier. He shoes racehorses. I went up to his farm one day and he just finished shoeing this horse. And I told him, I says, change those back shoes and front shoes. And he goes to me, what are you talking about? I just got done with her. So I told him how to do it. I made him do it my way. She won that next week. She won. She was a thoroughbred. And they, I don't know why they do this, but that line of center of articulation, believe me when I tell you, that line is greater from the backwards or forward.
Feet that are this long, but there's no feet on them. So I can't really agree with you on that. We do standardbred.
The bottom, there's something wrong with the bottom. That's why they're getting quarter cracks.
They're fine. Why do I have 25 horses and I don't have a quarter crack from April to January, and then January and February and March I have quarter cracks?
Because I told you the center of articulation is out of whack.
But it doesn't. The same blacksmith, same horse.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I'm the same blacksmith. I don't care. You can go ahead and tell you I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'll tell you.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I can tell you that center is longer one way or the other. But that's what causes a quarter crack.
And it has nothing to do with nutrition either.
No.
You sometimes get fungus up in that crack that you have to clean out before it will down.
In the quarter crack?
Yeah, or in any crack.
Well, if there's a quarter crack, you got to dig it out to get it cleaned up and put a patch over it. But if you don't change that center of articulation, you're beating a dead horse. I'll tell you, I shod horses a long time. I've never saw a quarter crack in any of my horses. Ever. I shot a lot of horses. Ever. I used to hear these guys doing quarter cracks. Why? I never saw one.
But
Never.
as a standardbred, we're also on very, very hard surfaces.
Yeah, but a standard bred, believe me when I tell you, standard breds, if you shoe that, the guy that I learned to do my blacksmithing and learned to work in the fire, he was one of the best standard bred shoers you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But he kept his feet the same, that length of foot from the center of articulation never changed. Even if it got longer, and you measured, it was the same. If you make that long, one longer than the other, then you're going to get a quarter crack.
I have two questions. When a horse has a flare, do you remove it?
Yes.
Do you remove it a little bit? Do you remove it completely?
Completely.
You completely move it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the horse flares out to the side.
That means it's too much weight on the other side and it's flaring out on that side. So you got to take some of that foot off and get the weight back going the other way.
Okay. A veterinarian once told me, I'd like to see your horse's feet bigger.
What kind of horse you got?
I have a quarter horse and I have an appendix.
Is the appendix part thoroughbred?
The appendix is part thoroughbred.
Well,
Is it possible to let the hoof grow?
Well, you can make a little get longer, it gets bigger. But I mean, if you measure the point of the frog to the heel, and put that toe shouldn't be any longer than that. Even barefooted shouldn't be any longer than that. If you make it shorter than that, you're looking for trouble, because you're going to take sole down. You're going to start taking more off the bottom than you need. Why do you want to do that? The guy I worked for is one of the best farriers in the world. I mean, it's Seamus Brady. He's the guy that made it possible for us guys to make a real living in this business. I remember when I started this job, you got $12 for 4 shoes. $12. Take you an hour and a half. Today, $350, $400 is nothing in shoeing a horse because of him. He never took a lot of foot off a horse, but they had beautiful feet when he got done, and they never broke down. You didn't see any quarter cracks. Well, Karina, I think that's the end.
Well, thank you, Sonny.
You're wonderful.
I
Thank you
hope
so
so.
much. Oh, you're wonderful.
All right, everyone else.
You're welcome.
The next one.
Who was your farrier?
Right now, his name is Jonathan Smucker. Jonathan Smucker. Right
Smucker?
Now. Yep.
Is he Amish?
Yep.
He's Amish.
Yep.
There's an Amish